Welcome to the Clear to Send podcast, a podcast about wireless engineering, where we educate you on Wi-Fi technology, talk about design tips, troubleshooting, interviews, and the tools. Here are your hosts, Roel and Francois.
Hi guys, welcome to a brand new episode of the Clear to Send podcast. This is Francois. I'm here with Roel. Hey Roel, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good, very good. And today we're going to talk about the news, I guess, FragAttacks. A whole new set of Wi-Fi vulnerabilities that have been released last week. So we just wanted to keep you guys up to date on what happened and what you guys should do on your network to kind of, I guess, work around those problems.
Yeah, it's a interesting vulnerability, right? Because Wi-Fi again is vulnerable to yet another attack, and this research comes out from the very respectful Mathy, who has a highly detailed report on this attack called FragAttacks.
Mm-hmm. And Mathy Vanhoef was the same guy who released the crack, or found, I guess, the crack attack back in 2017 and the Dragonfly in 2019. And this time around, from what I understood, he found it last year, 2020, and he worked with the industry to make sure that everyone was aware of it and everyone would start working on patches to kind of protect Wi-Fi devices against it, and that's why they only released it this week on May 11th.
May 11th, 2021, and it's been known for about a year. And he took he responsibly reached out to the right people, got all these vendors involved, especially the Wi-Fi Alliance. They got involved as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is pretty nice from him. He's kind of like helping the entire Wi-Fi industry against these type of vulnerabilities and attacks. And what Roel and I want to do today for you guys is just to give you a quick summary of what these problems are and how you could work around them in your network.
Yeah, so for short, it's called FragAttacks because it actually works against the frame aggregation and the way that is done over the air. That is where the vulnerability is, and the way that APs and clients handle frame aggregation. And so there are a number of CVEs out there. We can list that in the show notes. We're not going to go over every single one in detail because it is quite a lot to go through. What we want to talk about is just give you an overview of what FragAttacks is, what you should do, and point you to the right resources so you can take your own action items and protect your network. Because while these vulnerabilities have been announced in the past, it is just important to understand what the vulnerability is and what the impact is for your own Wi-Fi network.
Mm-hmm. And some of these, I think what's interesting in this research is that some of these vulnerabilities are related to how the protocol is designed, how 802.11 is designed, and especially the fragmentation of frames. And some of these vulnerabilities have been there since the very beginning, since 1997, and it's kind of mind blowing how no one ever found these, or maybe some people found them, but they kept it to themselves. I was thinking about that reading the documentations.
Yeah, I mean that's true, right? And it may be because Wi-Fi is a complex technology for some people to understand. I think Mathy really understands the protocol, really understands the standard, because he's able to talk to it very, very intelligently, right? And go through these attacks and also show you that how that attack actually works.
And also there's different mindsets the mindset of us, the Wi-Fi engineers, the operators, would be different from the mindset of the security researcher, because what their goal is to look at everything in the protocol from a security standpoint and try to find one way to exploit it in a way that's not conventional, to kind of find the vulnerabilities. So they're not going to have the same mindset as us, looking at all of these things. So they're going to try to find the little needle on the haystack and trying to see if they can exploit something in one way or the other. So that probably also explains why no one has found it before. It's like you need the specific mindset, and you need the knowledge of you need to understand the technology at a very deep level, like you just said.
Yeah, and so what it comes down to with the FragAttacks is Mathy was able to take the fragmentation, and the impact to this is really injecting frames into the conversation, and also obtaining data out of that exchange as well, unencrypted. And so that, to me, is a pretty big vulnerability. But in order to pull this off, it is not, I don't think it is as easy to pull off, but nonetheless, it's still possible.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So in order to exploit this, you need to run a man-in-the-middle attack, which in Wi-Fi means you have to set up like a fake AP. So an AP that will kind of replicate, the SSID of a corporate network. And then you kind of have to try to see if devices can connect to you instead of connected to the legit AP. And then once this happens, you can act in the middle of the connection, and you can try to do, like you said, your packet injection, which will be more like fragment injection, I guess, in this case.
Yeah.
Where we're trying to inject fragments before the Wi-Fi device, merges everything together.
Yeah, the part about being the man in the middle, that's probably the easiest part, because you do, like you said, you set up that rogue AP, right? And basically setting up the same SSID, but let's say the victim is already associated to an AP, you would have to get that victim to join your AP. And there's a couple of ways that you could do that. You can send deauth frames. I think there's a channel assignment change that you could send out there to get, to have the victim join your AP. So that also means you would have to be in proximity of the victim, right? Because it's got to have that signal strength to join your AP. And so once you do that, there are requirements to pull off this attack. So fragmentation is one. The victim needs to send fragmented frames. And in order to send fragmented frames, the infrastructure, the AP and the client, there's usually an MTU, I think what it is, the MTU that needs to be set. So if it hits the threshold, it would then fragment the frames. So that's one of the requirements. The other one is that you also, in the attack, it needs to do some rekeys. So it does, there's so much to it that someone would need to also be able to identify the sequence numbers, because there's when you have fragmented frames, there are a sequence number attached to that, right? If you were to do a frame capture, you'll see those sequence numbers. That part, to me, I think, is how it can be mitigated, because Mathy goes into this in his report about how some clients and APs didn't care for the actual sequence number and would just kind of put it together and then go, oh, this one's kind of out of sequence, but I'll put it all together and then run through those fragmented frames.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like everything you just said just shows that it's not easy. To me, it's not really easy to kind of exploit it. And also it shows us that with the way we can fix these vulnerabilities is by updating, updating the firmware of our Wi-Fi devices. So because some of it is, also leveraging the implementation of how Wi-Fi or how devices handle frames or fragments. So we can actually patch the implementation to kind of fix those problems on our devices. So that would be the solution here. That would be to patch, all of our Wi-Fi devices, and that's where it's a solution, but it's also a problem because we need to patch all Wi-Fi devices, not just the APs. We also need to patch the client devices.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where it becomes a big issue because, you might have a lot of different devices in your environment that you have to patch. And then tomorrow when you buy a new set of equipment, you're going to need to make sure that this equipment is also patchable. Not talking about all the devices that come and connects to your network that you don't manage.
That would be the most problematic part, are the devices you cannot control. So the APs themselves, you can update those. There's going to be updates. So there's already updates out for a lot of these APs. So if you've got cloud managed APs, these updates have been rolling out since the report came out because of the disclosure that was done last year. So Mathy worked with a lot of vendors for a year. So if you go to our show notes, we have a list of from different vendors showing their advisories and which APs are affected, which ones aren't, and which update will patch this vulnerability. But when it comes to, say, your mobile devices, your laptops, I don't really know when those updates are going to come out, right? Because pretty much every single operating system is vulnerable to this.
Mm-hmm. I think Microsoft already came out with some patches, but yeah, it's going to be, and I mean, you have the conventional OS like Microsoft Mac OS, Android, and so on, but you also have all of these IoT devices that use, low-level chipset or whatnot.
Those will never get updated.
Yeah.
And talking about the security, the Wi-Fi security, right? So, the vulnerabilities on to like which type of security is this affecting, right? It's all of it, right? WEP, TKIP, WPA, WPA2, even WPA3, right? All of these are affected. But if we could patch our APs, there's also the consumer routers that need to be patched as well, which never get patched also. All of these are affected.
I guess it's a good point that you're making is that these vulnerabilities are, don't touch the encryption of Wi-Fi. They only look at the fragmentation and the how the devices, how the 802.11 devices deals with those fragments. So since they don't touch the encryption, I mean, we could say that Wi-Fi encryption is not broken, which is, I guess, one good thing. If Wi-Fi encryption would be broken, that would be a big deal. So that's a good thing. But then at the same time, like you said, it will impact all of the different security we might configure on the networks. Even though, if you do if you do WPA3, then I think management frame protection is a requirement, is mandatory, which means that it's harder to do a man-in-the-middle attack. So you might be, I guess, better protected in a way if you use WPA3.
Yeah. So the problem there is we don't have all devices supporting WPA3. So we're getting there. We just need to, the WPA3 support is here from a lot of vendors already. So once we can transition to WPA3, we'll be addressing a lot of vulnerabilities and a lot of security design flaws. I would say one of the biggest impacts to this vulnerability with the frag attack is if the attacker is able to do packet injection, where it's going to attack towards the victim, then they can inject a malicious DNS server. To me, that's the biggest security risk, because then now you can just have that client redirected to, the malicious servers that then the attacker can do way more attacks to the victim, right? So then you would still need to somehow protect those clients from using the wrong DNS servers, right? So there's then the defense in depth beyond Wi-Fi.
So I guess what can you do today against frag attacks? If you manage a network, the first thing you would want to do is patch your APs and your client devices, right? I guess as much as possible. Try to see with the vendors that you're using if they have patches available. If they don't, just try to see if they have any security advisory where they're just publish the information for you, and then try to patch these devices as soon as you can. I know some people have already patched the APs this week. I did in my house. I have some missed access points. I upgraded them this morning. With the firmware that's patched, so you can get this information out and update your APs. Second thing you can do is try to mitigate man-in-the-middle attacks in your environment, and there are a lot of different security ways to do this. You can have you can implement what we call a wireless IDS, wireless IPS, where the APs themselves will kind of detect if someone is trying to do to generate an SSID, like the same SSID as your corporate SSID, or it will try to detect rogue access points, honeypot access points, and will send that information back to you. You can also do you can enable features like MAC spoofing, SSID spoofing, detection inside the wireless IPS or wireless IDS to kind of detect this. So you can
there's many vendors that support that already. It just means we have to start looking at those reports and alerts.
That's usually the issue with wireless IDS, is that you get flooded with different things and you don't really look at them. But if you kind of refine how they're configured, you can also refine the alerts that you're getting to only, I guess, be alerted to what is really impactful, I guess. So that's one thing you can do. The default configuration is usually too broad, and you get too many stuff, and you don't really look at it.
Right. Yeah, that's the hard part. But I guess with this type of attack, you do want to keep track of any rogue APs that are broadcasting your SSID, and you want to address those quickly. The other thing too is do what you're doing today, which is listening to this episode, educate yourself, take a look at the show notes. You can read the report if you want. It's highly technical. It's a very well written report. Jim also has a good blog on this, Jim Palmer, and he also lists a lot of resources. He breaks it down as well. That's a good blog to read, so we'll link out to that, and then reach out to your vendor, see what resources they have. We'll also link out to the vendors that we found that have links to how they're responding to frag attack, and they list out which APs are affected. So educate yourself, start educating your team so that nobody freaks out, right? This is not something you should be freaking out about. You just got to address it the best you could, right? So updating your APs would be the first step. But what you need to know is that you don't need to raise the alert and take down Wi-Fi because of this.
Let's replace everything with 5G.
Oh, that's a different discussion. Should we go to 5G now?
The educate portion is interesting, and one thing that we can also educate is, one thing we can also do is educate the users, because usually that's the people that have the least amount of, I guess, security or IT knowledge, and we can educate the users in figuring out if someone is doing a man in the middle by making sure the page is secure, making sure we have the real lock on the browser when you go to a logging page, all this type of stuff could be, or looking at the URL, all these things could, or looking at how do you call it, the emails,
don't click on the phishing.
Yeah, phishing emails, exactly. So all of this stuff, I guess we could educate the users on, and as much as we can, I guess.
Yeah, those are going to be our weakest point in security, right? Even with people still working from home, those consumer routers need to be updated. So tell them to update. Some are easier to do than others, right? So if you've got the latest version of APs that go back to the cloud and automatically update, that's great. I don't know. Maybe we should also list some consumer routers that are providing updates to this.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we'll do some research to try to find that.
What else should they do? There's a lot of resources on this.
Yeah, one thing we didn't mention is that Mathy and all of his team, they publish tools on their GitHub that you could use if you want to test, vulnerabilities against, or test an AP against those different vulnerabilities. And you could also, they also have tools so you can exploit them or do it on your own. So if that's something that you're interested in, you can always do that as well. If you want to take it one step further, you can do that. Everything is published and available.
Yeah, I think that's really neat what Mathy did, because being able to test it for yourself and see how possible it is really interesting. I think you'd need to use Linux to do this, but he provides all those resources in order to run the same attack, verify if you're vulnerable.
Yeah, so I think that's pretty good from us. We didn't want this episode to be too long. We kind of wanted to provide a TLDR. Is that how I say it, right? TLDR, a version of it. And we'll put all the resources in the show notes if you guys want to take a deeper look. Depending on the vendors that you're using, you might want to look at different resources. And that's kind of like what we wanted to do for today.
Yep. So that's pretty much the end of the summary of the frag attack, the frame aggregation, and attack on APs and wireless devices. So go out there, patch them all as these updates get released. And I guess we'll wait for Mathy to come out with the next vulnerability. But I want to say that he did a great job. Like him and his team are, like, they're exceptional, right? They're doing something very good for the industry. So I want to applaud them. They do great work. He's definitely one to follow and listen to when it comes to these vulnerabilities that he lists out.
I agree.
All right. Well, we want to thank you guys for listening. So head over to our show notes. I don't even know what episode number this is, Franco.
263. Yeah.
263. And we'll continue to update that page with resources as we find it. But want to thank you guys for listening. I do want to tell everyone that we're switching to publishing episodes every other week. It's been crazy for you and me, Francois, to now publish weekly, because what we're trying to do is get more technical episodes out there, but it requires a lot of planning up front. But giving us only 5 days to plan, 5, 6, 7 days to plan is not enough time. So we're gonna change our publishing schedule so that way we can get more planning into the episodes, more detail, so we don't rush them. So hopefully, I don't know, maybe we can try this attack, Francois. Like that could be one that we can cover.
Yeah.
Like, how easy is this? Let me try it.
Yeah. I don't think it's easy, but yes, we can definitely try it. That would be fun.
All right. So what you got going on this week, Francois?
This week I'm teaching a ECC advanced class, and I'm also working on a couple of designs to design for two customers. So yeah, in two different environments, which is nice, exciting for me. I did an AP on a SIG on Friday that I have to work upon, and then I'm working for another customer in the early stages for warehouse Wi-Fi. So we'll have to work on that too. So a lot of exciting stuff on my end. What about you?
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm actually in a hotel because I just did an AP on a stick yesterday. So I'm working on that design, finish that up today, or not today, but this week. And then I've got a couple of non-Wi-Fi things I need to take care of. So it's a good refresher for me to not just do Wi-Fi all the time. I do like doing other parts of the network as well. So that's why it's refreshing for me. But then I'll go back onto the Wi-Fi portion soon.
I should do that more often. Huh? The other side of the network. Oh, you know what? I have a SRX that I need to implement in my lab.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Now you can start working on the full stack. Yeah, I've been doing more full stack lately. I do have some clients who go, "Oh, you do wireless? Okay, so can you do the firewalls as well? Can you do the switching?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can do that. Like, sure, I can. I just only tell clients I do Wi-Fi, and then they learn that I can do the other parts of the network too."
Which is nice.
It's nice. I just don't want to make myself too busy.
Yes.
Because once you start touching other parts of the network, you gotta worry about the other vulnerabilities now.
Yes.
All right, guys.
Never ends.
Yeah, let us know if you have any questions or anything else you want to add to the show notes up in the comments. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye, guys.
See you guys. Have a good week. Bye-bye.